A Russian train loaded with 560 tons of fuel blew up in flames right in the occupied Zaporizhzhia region in Ukraine. An entire convoy of 8 cars turned into a fireball, and all that was caused by just 3 drones. What looked like a quiet night turned into a total hell. The Ukrainian attack was precise, calculated, and devastating. It wasn't just any attack. It was a direct hit on Russian logistics, capable of stopping 2 whole battalions for a week. But how did this happen? And what were the consequences? Now you're going to get the full picture. The conflict between Russia and Ukraine, which started in February 2022, has evolved drastically over these 3 years. What began as a conventional invasion attempt turned into an extraordinary display of military innovation by Ukraine. Since early 2025, something fundamental changed in Ukraine's strategy. The Ukrainian forces realized they couldn't match Russia in sheer numbers of equipment, so they shifted focus to precision operations that cause maximum damage with minimal resources. The crucial discovery was that Russia heavily depends on its railroads to move heavy military gear across its vast territory. Russia's railway system is massive, with over 85,000 kilometers of tracks connecting from a Chinese border all the way to regions near Ukraine. For Russia, railroads aren't just a logistical convenience, they're literally the backbone of its entire military capability. Tanks, heavy artillery, fuel, and troops mostly move by train, especially in a territory as huge as Russia's. The May 2025 attack we're talking about today wasn't a one-off event, but the peak of a systematic campaign that's been heating up. In March 2025, coordinated sabotage operations hit Russian railways, disabling logistics hubs in 6 different regions and targeting energy and fuel systems. The escalation was impressive. Reports show that deliberate arson attacks increasingly targeted crucial railway infrastructure in key regions supporting Russian military logistics. The Moscow, Samara, and Tver regions saw significant disruptions when 6 traction units were destroyed by fire. But what made the May operation truly revolutionary was its precision and sophistication. While previous attacks focused on sabotaging tracks and stations, this operation marked a big leap in Ukraine's ability to intercept and destroy moving military equipment. The attack that changed everything happened in May 2025 and marks a milestone in the evolution of modern military tactics. The strike on a Russian freight train carrying military gear, especially locomotives hauling armored units, delivered a major blow to Moscow's ability to quickly reinforce front-line positions. The operation began with detailed intelligence on Russian military train movements. Ukrainian forces identified a specific rail convoy transporting heavy military equipment, likely heading to reinforce Russian front-line positions. What the Russians didn't know was that the Ukrainians had developed a new tactic turning seemingly harmless cargo cars into mobile attack platforms. The result was devastating. 13 tanks were completely destroyed, along with over 100 armored vehicles of various types. The total value of the lost equipment is estimated in the tens of millions of dollars, representing a serious hit to Russian military capacity. To put it in perspective, a single modern tank can cost between $3 to $6 million, depending on model and configuration. But to fully understand this operation's success, we need to look at how drone technology evolved during the conflict. At the start of 2025, drones were responsible for 60% to 70% of the damage and destruction inflicted on Russian equipment in the conflict. This stat reveals a fundamental shift in modern combat. Drones aren't just recon tools or occasional strike weapons anymore. They've become the main weapon for destroying expensive military gear. What started as auxiliary tech evolved into the backbone of Ukraine's military strategy. The May attack's specific innovation was hiding weapon systems inside ordinary railway infrastructure. The Ukrainians managed to infiltrate drones inside cargo cars that looked completely normal, creating a scenario where Russia's own logistics system became a trap. The impact of this attack was immediately felt on several fronts. Militarily, the loss of equipment was a significant setback for Russian operations in the region. But the consequences went far beyond just the military side. The operation exposed a critical vulnerability in Russia's supply lines. If the Ukrainians could sneak drones into cargo cars, that means their intelligence and special operations are way more advanced than many thought. Even more importantly, it revealed that Russia's railway system, traditionally seen as safe, was totally exposed to this kind of attack. On June 26, 2025, Ukrainian resistance forces, coordinated with Ukraine's defense intelligence, carried out a successful sabotage operation in the temporarily occupied Zaporizhzhia region. A powerful explosion destroyed a crucial rail section that Russian forces heavily relied on for military logistics. This follow-up attack proved the May operation wasn't a one-time thing, but part of a coordinated campaign. Because of it, train traffic on the damaged section was completely halted, paralyzing Russian logistics in the area for over a week. Russia's reaction to the success of Ukrainian railway attacks showed both panic and adaptation. Russia is building a new railway link between occupied Crimea and southern Ukraine for military use, and as an alternative to the Kerch Bridge. To protect the railway from Ukrainian drones, the occupiers are using fishing nets. This response is revealing for a few reasons. First, it shows Russia admits its existing rail lines are compromised. Second, the proposed solution, using fishing nets to shield the tracks, shows both the urgency and the makeshift nature of Russia's response. That Russia needs to build new rail routes specifically to avoid Ukrainian attacks is a big strategic win for Ukraine. It forces Russia to spend huge resources on defensive infrastructure, resources that could have been used for offensive operations. The economic side of these attacks is maybe the most underestimated, but potentially the most devastating long-term. Russian railroads don't just transport military gear, they're essential for Russia's economy as a whole. When Ukrainians target railway infrastructure, they're effectively hitting Russia's economic ability to sustain the conflict. Russia also faces problems with parts that used to be imported. This causes loading issues and frequent network breakdowns due to lack of spare parts like bearings and electronic components. This creates a vicious cycle for Russia. Ukrainian attacks damage railway infrastructure, forcing frequent repairs. But because of international sanctions, Russia struggles to get the parts needed for repairs. That results in an increasingly fragile and unreliable railway network. The global community reacted with a mix of admiration and concern. On one hand, the attack was seen as an impressive display of Ukrainian military creativity. On the other, it raised questions about conflict escalation and the security of civilian infrastructure. American and European military experts immediately began studying the tactics used, recognizing they represent a significant evolution in modern military operations. The Pentagon even started talks about adapting these tactics for its own operations. The biggest lesson from these attacks is about the vulnerability of modern logistics infrastructure. Armies usually worry about protecting bases, airports, and ports, but railway infrastructure is often seen as relatively safe, especially far from the front lines. Because of this, the success of the May attack encouraged more intense railway sabotage operations. Due to an explosion on the rail line, the train with fuel tanks and cargo cars derailed. Moscow's crucial logistics artery in the occupied territories of Zaporizhzhia and Crimea was disrupted. In March 2025, coordinated arson attacks in the Moscow, Samara, and Tver regions destroyed 6 traction units, damaging logistics hubs. A December 2023 attack on the Severomysky Tunnel in eastern Russia caused weeks of delays. The Severomysky Tunnel is particularly important because it's the only railway connecting central Russia with China and North Korea. The attack effectively blocked the only serious rail route between Russia and China. From a tech standpoint, these attacks represent a revolution in how military conflicts are fought. The ability to hide weapon systems inside common civilian infrastructure creates totally new challenges for defenders. Drone technology, which was already changing military operations, gained a new dimension with these operations. Ukrainians showed that relatively cheap, small drones can cause disproportionate damage to expensive and sophisticated military equipment. This reversal of the traditional cost-benefit equation has deep implications for future military strategies. A drone costing a few $1,000s can destroy a tank worth millions. This forces traditional militaries to completely rethink how they protect their most valuable assets. Beyond the material impact, these attacks have a big psychological effect. For Russian soldiers, knowing that even equipment transport far from a front line can be attacked creates a constant feeling of vulnerability. There's no such thing as a safe place in the rear anymore. For Russian railway operators, every trip becomes a risky mission. This affects not only morale but also operational efficiency. When people work scared, they make more mistakes and are less productive. On a broader geopolitical level, these attacks have implications way beyond the Russia-Ukraine conflict. They show smaller countries can, through innovation and creativity, neutralize some traditional advantages of bigger military powers. This might encourage other countries in similar situations to develop their own asymmetric capabilities, potentially shifting power balances in various regions of the world. The message is clear. size, and traditional resources no longer guarantee automatic military dominance. The success of these attacks is forcing a fundamental rethink of how militaries view logistics and supply protection. Communication lines once considered safe now need to be reimagined. This will probably lead to new protection systems for logistical convoys, including more sophisticated electronic countermeasures and better threat detection systems. But fundamentally, it might lead to a shift in how militaries organize their logistics operations. Looking ahead, we'll likely see a complete transformation in military logistics. The traditional model of big convoys moving heavy equipment on predictable routes is becoming obsolete. The future will probably see more distributed logistics with smaller loads, more varied routes, and more advanced protection systems. This will raise operational costs but might be necessary to keep effectiveness in an environment where logistics infrastructure is constantly threatened. For military watchers worldwide, these attacks offer valuable lessons on how modern warfare is evolving. They show the importance of innovation, adaptability, and unconventional thinking in contemporary conflicts. The most important lesson is that military superiority isn't just about having the best gear or the biggest army. It's about the ability to adapt quickly to new conditions and find creative ways to exploit enemy vulnerabilities. The Ukrainian attack on the Russian train in May 2025 was way more than just a tactical victory. It symbolizes a fundamental shift in the nature of modern conflict, where creativity and innovation can beat traditional advantages in resources and equipment. The consequences of this attack are still unfolding, influencing military strategies, technological developments, and geopolitical dynamics worldwide. What started as a specific military operation has become a landmark in the evolution of modern warfare. For Ukraine, this success is not just a military win, but a powerful demonstration of its ability to innovate and adapt in the face of seemingly impossible challenges. The railway sabotage campaign that followed showed this wasn't a one-off, but part of a coordinated strategy that keeps inflicting serious damage on Russian military capacity. For the world, it offers a glimpse into the future of military conflicts, where the lines between civilian and military, defensive and offensive, are constantly being redrawn. Infrastructure once considered safe is now recognized as vulnerable, forcing a fundamental rethink of how to protect critical logistics systems. This event reminds us that in the modern age, victory doesn't necessarily belong to the biggest or best equipped, but to those who think more creatively and adapt faster to changes on the battlefield. The railway war Ukraine is fighting against Russia might well define how future conflicts are fought, setting new standards for asymmetric military operations and tactical innovation. If you like learning how Ukraine is revolutionizing modern military tactics, leave a like down below to show quality content like this deserves to be seen by more people. And if you want to keep up with the most detailed analysis of geopolitical developments that are changing the world, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. That way you won't miss anything about the events that are redefining the future of global military strategy.